You already mentioned a bit of, well, customer demands, but I think a lot of that comes from compliance as well. How important is compliance in all these integrations?
It's the underlying framework, right? Compliance across the board is obviously a major topic, whether you're looking at AI compliance or anything else with it. Now, depending on each particular industry, that changes a little bit. The healthcare industry, defense, as I mentioned earlier, in this one particular example, and others, they're obviously living in a completely different, bucket when it comes to compliance altogether. But there are obviously various compliance laws that, especially recently, and very much introduced by the European Union as well, and or other countries that can do it quite well. One example is Korea. So I think you've covered probably enough about Europe. I'll give you an example from Korea because maybe your listeners don't know too much about that. There is the AI Readiness Act that's over there, which ultimately underlyingly requires companies to know, well, in its first state, it's about labeling, is something AI generated or not? But really what it's about is labeling and understanding all the data that comes into your AI, how it goes into it, how it's processed, how it's transformed ultimately end to end, the entire life cycle of it before it reaches the, let's call it the final consumer of it. And that's actually remarkably difficult because it's a little bit like asking, where does the internet get its information from? It's, and it's that is remarkably difficult. So what we've done is we've built an integration layer. We're working with one of the largest companies in Korea on that particular challenge, actually. So we've built an integration layer where the incoming data comes in, and a little bit like in a post office scenario where each particular letter that comes through gets a stamp, on the letter itself. We can do that as well with incoming data, making sure that it gets categorized. We understand from a compliance level where does it go, so that at a later audit, you can go back into it and ultimately say this particular information here was coming from internal sources. This information here was processed from external sources. That information might then have to be cleansed. So PII violations have to be avoided. Therefore, no personal identifiable information, first name, last name, addresses, for example, etc., dates of birth, they have to be cleansed before they then can be analyzed, for example, by local or foreign AI tools. So there's an entire process from an infrastructure point of view that we put in place. And one, it's to keep compliance in place, but it's also to make sure that AI can be comfortably used in larger organizations. Because I heard on one of the other pods that you did, AI often is not enterprise ready, or people are scared about it. And that is really because these these layers of compliance aren't adequately in place.
So, and from my understanding, with all that stamping and preparation, does that almost mean that for every request that you do, let's maybe take the insurance company again. So if I ask for specific, or the AI provides specific customer information with policy information, it's almost like for every single request that happens by the customer service team, it can be traced back to the sources that were used as input for that specific request?
Yeah, in the end, it's in an audit environment, right? You wouldn't want to do that every day, but the external or internal auditors need to have the ability to really take a look at what's been going on, which AI decisions have been made, which data was exposed, have there been PII violations or not, because then either that needs to be stopped or in some cases it needs to be reported for other legal reasons. So I think what's really important when architecting this is that all the internal teams are adequately working together on that as well. So the legal team obviously needs to be involved. That needs to talk to the technical sides. The operations guys need to be involved. Because back to the boardroom, it's very easy to create a mandate and say we want to have X amount % of AI adoption, etc. And then in the end, it fails on the use case. It turns out, in our experience at least, that the most exciting use cases are actually probably the most boring ones from a board perspective, because they solve one little thing that currently is completely manual in its entire nature. So I think these are really the low-hanging fruit for organizations to look at as well. The other day, we were talking to a company. They were literally creating invoices in SAP, printing it, physically printing it, scanning it again, and then sending it to partner suppliers and so on. Quite a large company. I couldn't believe it. Literally couldn't believe it. And the reason this is still in place, is because nobody actually had the guts to tell leadership that this is their process. Leadership was not aware of that. It was, frankly, it was embarrassing.
I can imagine. I've worked with SAP for quite some time, and I haven't seen this process. So most of the SAP world that I've seen is fully automated, and just invoices get sent to email or interfaces or wherever it needs to go. So, but I can imagine if you still had this process, I'd also not maybe want to tell my leadership about it. So,
yeah.
Wow.
So, and we work with SAP a bit as well, and that is usually not the case, 100%. Usually it's automated and so on. But in such a use case, you may not even need AI for it, right? This just comes down to digital transformation and making sure that your data pipelines are in place. That 100% should be automated. But on top of this here as well, the AI readiness can stall exactly at these levels.